The apocalypse does not begin with fire from the sky. It begins with slightly less light than there should be. At first, nobody believes it. The sun does vary in real life. Its total energy output rises and falls by about 0.1% over the 11-year solar cycle. That is normal. What we are imagining is not. It is not a bad season, not a solar minimum, not a weird weather year. It is the sun itself quietly dimming, month after month, year after year, and never stopping, and that changes everything. Because the sun is not just a bright disk in the sky, it is the dominant external energy source driving Earth's climate system. Weather, seasons, photosynthesis, and the temperature balance that makes this planet livable. Take that energy away slowly, and Earth does not die in one dramatic explosion. It simply starts running short on the one thing almost everything else depends on. So what if the sun began fading today? Not exploding, not vanishing, just dimming. How long could modern civilization keep pretending it was still in control? The first people to notice are not farmers or presidents. They are scientists watching the instruments that constantly monitor the sun's energy output. At first, they suspect calibration errors, sensor drift, or software glitches. Then, multiple instruments, observatories, and monitoring systems start confirming the same impossible trend. The sun is delivering less energy than it should. And next month, it is dimmer still. Because the normal variation is so small, a sustained decline beyond that range would stand out fast. That is the moment panic sets in. Because this is no longer an astronomy problem. It is a civilization problem. Financial markets react before most people even hear the full story. Energy futures spike. Agricultural forecasts turn ugly. Governments call emergency summits. Central banks, militaries, and food security agencies all reach the same conclusion at once. Earth is receiving less energy than the system was built for. And unlike a war, a recession, or a pandemic, you cannot negotiate with the sun. You cannot sanction it. You cannot vote it out. You can only adapt or break. For a while, humanity looks almost heroic. And honestly, it should. Governments ration power. Nuclear plants run at maximum. Coal and gas plants roar back. Rich nations pour trillions into indoor vertical farms, giant greenhouses lit by artificial light, geothermal systems, heat recycling, and desperate climate engineering experiments. Cities with strong grids and deep fuel reserves hold together longer than expected. Some regions even manage to keep the lights on and the greenhouses growing. For a moment, it feels like the species that split the atom might actually outmaneuver a dimming star. And for a while, some places would, but only for a while. Because technology can redistribute energy. It cannot replace the sun at planetary scale. Earth's systems are built around a massive, relatively stable solar input. If that input keeps shrinking, the math eventually beats the engineering. The cooling does not happen overnight. That is what makes it so deceptive. At first, it is just patterns, cooler summers, longer winters, shorter growing seasons, late frosts that wipe out harvests, snow that refuses to melt. The sky can still look familiar, but the energy balance underneath it is shifting. And then the feedback begins. Fresh snow can reflect up to about 85 to 90% of incoming sunlight. Ice can reflect roughly 50 to 70%. Open ocean, by contrast, absorbs most of what hits it. So as snow and ice spread, Earth starts bouncing more solar energy back into space instead of keeping it. A whiter planet becomes a colder planet, and a colder planet becomes whiter still. This is where the problem stops being linear. A fading sun cools the Earth. But the cooling then starts helping itself. What began as a dimmer star turns into a planet that is learning how to freeze. By now, the crisis turns brutally political. Not every country, city, or social class can be protected equally. Some nations still have power, fertilizer, and heated transport. Others are already rationing bread and turning lights off at 6. The world stops responding as one species. It starts responding as competing states and regions fighting over the shrinking patches of Earth that are still warm enough, productive enough, and governable enough to sustain life at scale. The question is no longer, can we solve this? It becomes, who gets saved first? This is not ultimately a story about freezing to death. It is a story about starving. Photosynthesis weakens under reduced sunlight. Growing seasons shrink. Staple crops start failing across major agricultural regions. Livestock systems come under severe stress as feed costs explode. Ocean food systems come under pressure as surface conditions cool and seasonal patterns become less reliable. You can build heated greenhouses, you can light vertical farms, you can preserve seed banks, but you cannot replace the planetary scale relationship between sunlight and life. A country can still have power plants, soldiers, and money, and still watch supermarket shelves empty because sunlight itself is no longer enough. A cold planet with enough food is an engineering problem. A cold planet with collapsing food systems becomes a political war. Earth's climate system starts acting like a trap. Paleoclimate science has long shown how ice albedo feedback can lock the planet into much colder states. Once enough ice forms, the planet itself begins to defend the cold by reflecting away more of the sunlight that still arrives. That is what makes a fading sun so terrifying. Not just the initial loss of energy, but the fact that Earth can start cooperating with the disaster. The colder it gets, the more light it throws away. And the more light it throws away, the harder it becomes to warm back up. The deepest damage is not to the planet first. It is to the modern world itself. Power grids move from stress to triage. Mass migration turns from politics to survival. Borders become militarized walls. Food exporting nations seize their own supplies. Warmer regions are flooded by desperate climate refugees. Global trade, the system that once balanced one bad harvest with another, starts breaking apart exactly when it is needed most. The first thing the fading sun destroys is not the human species. It is the comforting illusion that Earth is still one stable, shared home. Because under enough pressure, civilization starts ranking people by strategic value. Workers first, citizens first, the rich first, the loyal first, the useful first, and everyone else learns what happens when the planet gets smaller. If the sun started fading tomorrow, the end would not be sudden or cinematic. It would be a long, grinding narrowing of the livable world. Humanity would adapt impressively at first. That matters. We would ration, build, engineer, heat, store, fight, and invent. Some pockets of civilization would hold far longer than anyone expects. But the deeper arithmetic would not change. Our climate, food systems, and political order quietly depend on a vast, steady flow of solar energy. If that flow keeps shrinking, no amount of human brilliance can rewrite the laws of physics at planetary scale. The fading sun would not kill us first with darkness. It would kill the modern world first by making Earth smaller, less productive, less governable, less shareable. That is the real horror. Not the dim sky above us, but the smaller, colder, more brutal planet beneath our feet, and maybe that is what makes this scenario so disturbing. It does not begin with one giant moment. It begins with measurements, then bad harvests, then hard winters, then rationing, then fear, then a species discovering that all its politics, wealth, and technology were built under a star it assumed would always keep shining the same way. So, what do you think? If the sun started fading tomorrow, would humanity manage to unite long enough to adapt? Or would the shrinking world tear civilization apart first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And tell me, what terrifying what if should we tackle next?